All right, we've got our copy of the cited lyric sheet of Death and Kingdom, Volume 1, The Death of Death. We're going to go track by track. My name is Stephanie Quick. I got to be part of this project and writing the lyrics and work with a really incredible team to bring it to life. Logan Murphy produced it. Michael Maher sang it. And the three of us were in the studio together a couple of years ago just hashing out everything. So I can't take credit for all the melodic genius and different things, but it was a really cool collaborative effort. And then we worked with Tyson Rains and Joel Sorge to get the videos to be this, just insane illustrated, hand-wrought labor of love to really make this a unique project. And so you can join us for our table talks that we did, Art in the Age of AI, The Making of Death and Kingdom. But this is just going to kind of go behind the scenes of the scriptures and the stories that went into writing the lyrics. So first off, we've got Two Trees, Two Seeds. It's a short song, couple minutes, but helps kind of open up the atmosphere of Death and Kingdom. And the thesis, if you will, of this song, and that's kind of where we'll go with all these videos, is just try to stick to the thesis. Otherwise, I could geek out and spend months going through these songs, but I think it would bore you guys. So Two Trees, Two Seeds has this refrain. It started with two trees, this collision of two seeds. The thesis of this song is just simply that this is God's plan A. This is not plan B. And I think sometimes, sometimes we kind of think, we kind of blew it in the garden. It was Adam and Eve. Some people really go after Eve and, feel, I think, in the frustration and the lament of what Paul calls this present evil age, we go, okay, well, we do this with any kind of tragedy, right? Like, how could we have avoided this? And there's lots to be said for that. But Peter tells us that Jesus is the lamb slain from before the foundations of the earth. So before God said, let there be light, before any of this, Jesus was ordained as the lamb slain to, using language from Hebrews, to shed the blood of the everlasting covenant. So this is God's plan A. We love the Romans 8:28, that God works all things together for his good and his glory for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Or Genesis 50:20 that says, what was meant for evil, God has redeemed it for good. And we see a bit of that at play. And Paul gives us, I think, pretty illuminating revelation. It's very brief, but in Ephesians 3, starting in verse 8, he says that God, the whole point to this whole thing, that this mystery that's being made known, this mystery from the ages, things that were set in place before the foundations of the earth, this whole thing is ultimately to put the manifold wisdom of God on display through his people to the powers and principalities of the air. So we are part of his story, but we are not the main character. This is not our story. This is his story. And we demonstrate his manifold wisdom. And there's a lot to be said about that as well. But it's important, I think, for us to know that, as much as we might be like, why put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden to begin with? Why let the snake in? Why could the snake talk? There were so many things that, obviously there's human error and indiscretion and sin involved in this, but could have set us up a little bit better, right, Lord? What'd you do that for? And I think that he would tell us through Ephesians to put my manifold wisdom of God on display through what I do in your life, when I do my Romans 8:28, when I do the Genesis 50:20, when I do the cross, and I upend all of these things. And could we have skipped that part? Maybe, sure, but I don't know that he'd be able to wrought love in us in the same way. So I think that there's gold in them, there hills, and there's things that we can only offer to Jesus at the end of this present evil age when we meet him, in the sky. Those who are asleep in Christ will rise from the dust first. Those who are alive in Christ will watch it happen in a split second, join the procession in the air. We'll talk about that a bit more in track 4, The Gates of Nain. It's 1 Thessalonians 4, 1 Corinthians 15. But the thesis to Two Trees, Two Seeds is that this whole thing is actually very intentional and very deliberate. And this coming collision between Christ and the Antichrist, we talk a lot about, in our eschatology, started between the two trees in Eden. There were a ton of trees, but there's two that we talk about, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I want us to feel courage that God knows what he's doing. He's sovereign. He's never surprised. And he is writing a really gorgeous story. So I hope, as kind of maybe unconventional as the arrangement for two trees, two seeds is, I hope that, we have a tripwire tree that's, Jerusalem is the tripwire, Zechariah 12, just cup of staggering, cup of stupor, cup of drunkenness, a tree, obviously, a collision of seeds. Genesis 3:15, I put enmity between you, the serpent, your seed, and her seed, the seed of the woman. And so there's this coming collision, we know from Genesis 3, between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And city of the great king, Jerusalem, dirt and controversy, a devil will cheat, a brother will bleed, the devil is a liar. Jesus is our brother and great intercessor, our great high priest. And, later the refrain changes and it's the devil will cheat, our brother succeed. Just to keep you on your toes a little bit, rage in every soul, Psalm 2, seals, trumpets, and bowls. That's Revelation. The scroll has 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. Every body in every grave arise from the dust at the end of the age. There's the first resurrection at the start of the 1,000-year reign of Jesus. There's the second resurrection at the end of the 1,000-year reign. But ultimately, to dust we go, dust we are, to dust we go. And from that dust, he will raise us to judge the quick and the dead. So that's track 1. We'll see you next week for track 2.